If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
Dude, can you do like a Ric Flair, like sort of reel where you're just like hyping yourself up? That'd be rad.
The greatest thing to happen since sliced bread at Gay Gourmet. The big man, Hunter McIntyre, all twisted steel and sex appeal, standing in front of you right now. It's 6'2", a lean 205.
Yeah. Man, what a fun interview. We've been looking forward to having Hunter in the studio for some time now. He's caused all kinds of waves in obstacle course racing, Tough Mudder,
He's
Spartan
kicking ass and taking names.
Damn right.
And we got a chance to meet when we were up in Tahoe for the Spartan race.
Oh, we loved you right away.
And instantly, we all fell in love with this guy.
Walks in with what did you have? You had a cowboy hat on and like an American flag tank top. And,
with an eagle on it.
And I'm just like, who? Yeah. Okay, I like this guy.
Instant friends.
Yeah, right away.
Right away.
This guy's a winner.
This is our people.
Yeah.
This guy knows how to do it.
Yeah, but we had a great conversation with you. We talked about your obviously competitions in OCR, your modeling background. That's fascinating, by the way.
Being sexy professional.
He was a professional model at one point. Your childhood. We got into your childhood and what that was all about.
Talked about drug addiction and rehab. We got into all kinds of crazy stuff.
I'm a drug enthusiast.
But not promoter. Yeah.
Now you can find him on Instagram at Hunt the Sheriff. That's a nice name. Where'd that come from, by the way?
The sheriff badge tattoo.
Oh, I see that. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm here to party.
Very cool. So you got to check him out on Instagram. You guys are going to love this episode.
Yeah.
And I do want to remind everybody that this month, Maps Anywhere is half off. Maps Anywhere, of course, is our fitness program that gets you in shape anywhere. It doesn't require any equipment, so you can do it at home. You can do it at work. You can do it on the road. It's half off. All you got to do is go to mapswhite.com and use the code WHITE50, WHITE, and the number 50 without a space for half off. And, of course, if you want to find out about other MAPS programs, just go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. And that's it. You want to say anything before we start your episode?
No, man. I just hope you guys listen. Hit me up if you enjoy the party.
Excellent. So without any further ado, here we are interviewing Hunter McIntyre.
Rock and roll!
Yeah! You guys should put record on. Everyone just hit Salvia one day.
Are you crazy?
No way, dude.
That'd be your top-rated podcast. I'm telling you right now.
Have you done Salvia?
That's what I started on.
Whoa. You started on the most powerful hallucinogenic?
Dude, we didn't know. That was the problem. So one of our friends, Andrew, in middle school, like his dad, like divorced family, his dad kind of gave him everything he wanted. So he found out in smoke shops there was this thing called Salvia. So his dad would buy him like bulk bags of this stuff.
His dad would?
Yeah. Because
I can't believe this is legal, by the way.
His dad had no clue. So we'd go into the backyard, and we didn't know where to get rolling paper. So what we would do is we'd take sticky notes, fill them with salvia, we'd roll them up because it had that sticky thing, and we'd smoke them, and we were destroyed.
Oh my God.
You're
in another dimension.
You lose all sense of reality, right?
Oh my God. Last time I did it, my head hit on the couch like this, and my face was melting into the couch, and because I was laughing so hard, I was like, no, I'm losing my face.
Oh my God. The shit you did. That was early on.
You went hard.
I don't even think I knew what salvia was back then. If you were middle school is when you fucked around with that?
Well, it was just kind of introduced to us.
Yeah,
just like
it had
anything.
been
Like
early.
We had no clue what we were doing. And
it's just like an herb.
Yeah.
No big deal.
What it's sold as. And I think that's probably got to be one of the most dangerous drugs on the planet. Like you think about bath
You cannot
salt,
drive on that. Yeah.
You can't do anything.
Yeah. I've seen the videos.
Yeah.
I'm cool.
I seen some kid jump out of the window.
Yeah, sometimes if I smoke too much weed, I freak out. So I'm cool with
I can't smoke weed at all anymore.
Why?
So I went to rehab 2007.
Oh man, you made it sad.
No. It was a great time.
Okay, good.
Honestly, it was such a good time. It's like, imagine if like you like to do drugs and there's like 5 other kids in your schools who like to do drugs. Now imagine you go to a sleepaway camp with everyone who likes to do drugs. So you're like you got great stories too.
You know what's funny is that the success rate on those aren't very high because of that exact reason right there. I think my cousin went to rehab like 8 times. You know what I'm saying? It's like
he just ended up meeting friends that do drugs.
Exactly what you just said. It's like camp for all your buddies that like to party and do drugs, and you link up afterwards.
They kept on kicking me out of the rehabs because I kept on telling them, I was like, you guys know that right when we leave here, we're going to do the same exact thing. Like, no 12-step program is going to change us. Like, we're all going to meet up and we're going to get lit. They're like, Hunter, you cannot say that to other children. This program will work for them. I was like, no, it's not.
How long ago was that?
2007.
Oh wow, what was your drug of choice? What was it that you were in there for?
I mean, it was everything. I mean, as I just said, like, salvia was like the first thing introduced to me. So like you just started at this incredibly high point. So your point of entry was like, imagine your first car was a Ferrari. Like you had to keep on finding other things that were similar to that kind of stimulus. So I just kept on partying, drinking, smoking, doing cocaine, doing pills. And we just did it every day, and I kept on getting arrested for like stupid things like smashing mailboxes, having fun as a kid. But, I guess the court system didn't think it was so funny. And by the end of it, they're like, dude, you can either go to jail or you can go to court a rehab for a year. And I was like, that's an obvious choice. I'm going to go ahead and rehab.
So is that when exercise and fitness and performance, did that replace the drugs and become your drug of choice?
Luckily, my program officer at the time, so I got to rehab and I was in college, and it was basically this kind of thing. Sorry. It was this kind of thing where I got to college for the first time ever, and they're like, don't do any drugs. And I was like, of course, I'm going to do drugs. So everybody was getting high, and I kept on failing everything. So I got sent to a second rehab, which was a nature rehab. Like you're out in the woods for 3.5 months, basically like sleeping in a sleeping bag in the dirt all day long. I got out of that one, and they're like, Hunter, like you've got one more chance before you go to jail. And I was like, all right, I need a job that's going to be so exhausting I cannot get high. And they're like,
I'm too tired to get high.
What a great approach.
I know. So that was my only attempt. I was like, what can I do that will prevent me from getting high? I'm like, I got to have my hands full. So they contacted this guy who used to work with the program, and he was a logger. So I got a job as a logger, and I was like, an 18-year-old kid, and they put me in the high woods of Montana doing like
that's
logging
a dangerous
jobs.
job, man.
It was insane.
It's also one of the most physical jobs you could possibly do.
I got so jacked. So I went from 165 to 215 in 8 months.
Holy shit.
Holy cow.
I got these bare paws for hands. And like that just made me, I remember I could walk into parties. I couldn't drink the beer. So what I would do is like party tricks. I'd pick like full kegs up, and I could like throw them around the party or walk around with it with my shoulder. And like right then and there, I was like, I'm a fucking beast. I was like, I'm gonna start doing this.
That logging strength.
So when I got out of rehab, I was just a monster, and I went to college to go wrestle, and I was like so much stronger, and I was just like, holy crap, like I got to learn how to lift weights. So basically, like I still was getting high all the time, but I knew like my journey was fitness. So
wow. So now were you wrestling up until this point?
Yeah. I wrestled all the way through high school, middle school, elementary school. It was all the kind of thing where it was like, just like a recreational soccer or anything. Like I wasn't so dedicated to it that I wanted to be like an Olympian. Like some kids wake up and like they're like every single day in high school, they're like, I'm going to be an Olympian or I'm going to be a world champion. Like I was just like, I'm going to toss people around on the mat and
You're just
have
good at
fun.
it.
Yeah, it was something to pass the time. Like my parents gave me an ultimatum. It was like either you do yard work, get a job, or you compete. So I just competed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's part of the secret to your performance? Because you have this. We were watching some old videos of you. What was that?
You just have a motor that
Broken
doesn't
skull.
quit,
Broken
man.
skull,
baby.
And by the way, you were smaller in that video than you
Way
are now.
smaller.
But your strength is silly.
Yeah.
You're very, very strong pound for pound, it seems. Would you say that the wrestling background was your secret?
It wasn't. Wrestling didn't make me that strong. What made me strong was climbing trees. Really, like it's crazy. I used to climb trees that were 50 to 100 feet high every day for hours on end. And we would just get high and climb up to the top of trees and make tree forts, dude. It was so hysterical. We'd like pack our backpacks with and rope up like 2x4s and stuff and with hammers and nails, and we'd climb trees, just gnarly segments, and then we just smash a nail into the tree and with a 2x4 and like sit there at the top and get high for a bit and be like, all right, we conquered this one, on to the next one.
Now is that something that's common? I would never even thought about this because I know it's a dangerous job, and and you got to be kind of a badass, probably a thrill seeker a little bit. So are drugs common in that circle?
Oh, in the logging industry?
Yeah,
dude. Everybody. So the guy who got me the job was a heroin addict and a meth addict, and he had recovered, obviously. And the guy who was... I was what was called a hooker and a knot bumper. Two pretty sloppy names. Yeah. So a hooker is the guy who... So imagine this is a hill right here. There's a crane at the top. Mm-hmm. You go down and they run this line down the mountain, and they've all the guys who saw down the trees have laid down lines of trees. You have to align them, wrap a big heavy cordage of metal around it, and make the call, and then they pull it up with the crane.
Oh, okay.
So And then the knot bumper is the guy at the top who unlocks the chains and then saws them down and makes the log completely just like a straight pull. And the guy who was my partner for both of that, there was a 29-year-old, so he was 10 years older than me, and he still was like getting fucked up constantly. And so I think it's just like a high adrenaline job, like, you're either getting high, you're either crushing your job or getting girls. Like that's the lifestyle.
It attracts, it would seem like it attracts like a dopamine junkie, somebody who needs
thrill
that
seeker.
constant thrill. And you fit that category.
Yeah, similar to, like, you remember those shows where the guys are like lobster crabbers or whatever, and they go out there, they crush it for 3 months in the high seas, then they come back and they go to like tit clubs, gamble, and like do meth.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We just did it on a daily basis.
Wow. Now, do you work now, or is your full-time job competing and being a sponsored athlete?
This is full time. The circumstance is this: like I kind of got into Spartan race back in 2012, and I told my parents, I was like, I'm going to become the best mud runner in the world. And they're like, you are not going to do that. Like, you go back to college. Like, everyone laughed at me, and I was like, I'm going to make this work. It's going to be awesome. Trust me. And within 3 months, I had a sponsorship from Spartan race, and then another 3 months, I had a sponsorship from Reebok. So it was kind of like the perfect wave. I caught it and just rode it into the beach. And since then, it's just been kind of a circuit of whether it's making money from the championship or making money from a sponsorship or, whatever the one-off deal was, it just grew.
Was this before or after your first show of Broken Skull?
Broken Skull was probably 3 years into the career.
Oh, so you had already got sponsored,
Yeah.
were already kicking ass. I thought it was the other way around. I thought Broken Skull kind of catapulted you.
No. I actually was really lucky. Within 2 years of doing Spartan Race, I got contacted by Esquire Network, and they hired me to host a television show with a couple other people traveling around the world doing the hardest endurance events. And that just was like kicking the shit out of me. And that is exactly the same time I got the call for Broken Skull Ranch. So I was an ultra distance athlete who got hired to do basically like the world's deadliest show, which is like more of a Macho Man television show, Broken Skull. So at that point, I was kind of converging two insanely different worlds and had to meet into the center and still be able to uphold my job, which was being this hosted like an endurance event that could last 3 days long, or something that could last 15 seconds in a sandy pit in Southern California on Broken Skull.
Oh, wow.
So you had to maintain two different levels of fitness.
Yeah, so that's where I'll admit two things that made me the beast of that show was I decided to take my bicycle and take all the gears off it and turn my bike into a single speed. So my legs just were like tree trunks. They were as hard as this table. Like you couldn't touch them and not like hurt your finger. So I had built this insane engine of strength endurance through doing that. And then from there, I started doing a lot of sled drags. I think you'd be so surprised. Like you don't need to squat, deadlift, or do bench press if you do sled drag as heavy as you can imagine for like half an hour to an hour at a time.
Oh, that's going to build tremendous strength.
Yeah, it was
and
awesome.
It's functional as fuck.
Yeah. Because at some point, and the strength endurance came from the logging too. At some point, I think like all you guys could probably put 400 or 500 pounds on your back for a squat, and you can hold that tension for probably like 10 to 15 seconds. But after that's done, like your power output drops severely.
Right.
And in all of these events that we would do, it's very similar. Like I may go up against a guy who has a stronger deadlift, bench, pull, whatever it may be. But after
your work capacity is just crazy.
After he dropped off, like I, for every 30 seconds, maybe drop a small percentage, whereas they drop 25, 50, 75, and down, now they're just like a shell of themselves.
Did you make that connection right away, or is it like an evolution of like, oh, I'm starting to pick up that a lot of these dudes are not training maybe the right way, and I've figured this out. Like, how'd you put that together?
I started. Like one thing I learned really, really young is if you want to beat people, you don't necessarily need to outwork them. You need to outsmart them. Now, outworking somebody is a very key attribute of being a good athlete. But I just started reading as many books as possible. So like I've read well over 100, 200 strength and conditioning books. So I was doing strongman research when I got the call for Broken Skull Ranch. I watched a couple episodes. I recognized the time domain of the exertion. And I was like, you need to be able to hold maximum intensity for 30 to 90 seconds. So I did the research on it, and I recognized that if I just put myself under tension for that long, I would be able to break it.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, that you were, a bit lighter like on the show, and then you decided to go all into the strongman type training, and then you gained a lot of weight. How much weight did you gain?
I was 178 when I did the first broken skull, and now I'm 208. So I fluctuate between like 208, 215 right now.
What's your best competition weight? Have you identified?
192.
That's where you feel just overall the best.
Well, if I was going to do an OCR, I'll do it 192. Like you guys went to Tahoe.
Yeah.
That right there, I'm probably a 188, 192. 192, I feel a little bit healthier. 188, like if the day is right, I can still feel good about it. And like that's where your body fat percentage like rides between like 6 and 9%. I would like to be like around 7 to 8.
They have official rankings for OCR, or is it just each organization?
Each organization's independent. They keep on trying to find these systems where they cross-section each other because they're all independent companies under one industry, and they all don't like to play by the rules together. For some reason, they just like you guys are so similar, but for some reason you can't agree on, the fact that
because one organization is going to want their guy to be the champion.
Yeah.
So
there's there's a couple of us that are always winning, and there's one guy, John Albin, who pretty much cleaned up this year on everything that was long distance. So like he would probably be the highest ranked guy right now.
Where are you on that?
I haven't competed in that circuit in about a year and a half, but anything that's under 30 minutes, under 60 minutes, I'd probably be number 1 or 2. Anything that's under 30 minutes, I'm number 1 by a large margin.
Now, I can imagine someone like you who loves the novelty, loves the competition. Are you getting bored with this kind of competition now that you've been just kind of dominating it, or is it still exciting for you?
It's still exciting. Like I think competition is something that defines me. I think I need to I'm starting to get a little bit more involved with CrossFit and trying to get involved in just like some more one-off opportunities. But the reality is like I'm still very passionate about my project, and until I will follow and pursue something to its very, very end, and then I will know the day it's done. Like I'm not the kind of person who's like, oh, I think I'll still try another one. Like I only compete knowing that I can have the opportunity to win.
Yeah. So CrossFit, tell us about that. What are you trying out with them?
This is such a crapshoot of information. But so I decided, like I've always talked about being good at CrossFit because it's something that I continue to add into my strength training routine all the time because it's very versatile and it's something you don't get bored at. Like, the 5x5 system is something that I just can't live by. So the approach of CrossFit has always been something I've been like enamored by. Let's try something today that's 10x1 followed by a circuit that's like 3 rounds of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, that's actually really cool. So I've been doing it for 5 years, but I've also been running professionally. They're 2 very different things. So then the announcement of TMX, which is our 1 mile championship for Tough Mudder, has been around for 2 years, and it's just like CrossFit, but it's always running forward. So you're always running to the next circuit and doing the next challenge. And professional CrossFitters would come in, and I was just denting them up left and right, and I was like, I could fucking kill these guys. I was like, I know I can beat them. So if you look at CrossFit, CrossFit's the score of the open is five workouts, right. And you have to be very good at these 5 workouts. You don't have to be the greatest. It's a game of averages. So, you have to be in the top percentile for all of them. Now, out of those 5 workouts, I will get 3 or 4 of them really top percentages, and then one of them I will shit the bed. And the one is always Olympic lifting. So I decided, I was like, that's it. So after my recent championship, June 9th with TMX, I was like, I won the thing. I know I can win it forever if I want to. I was like, that's it. I'm done running. So I haven't run in 4 months now, and I'm just going to Olympic lift. So now I am all in invested on CrossFit. Now, admittedly, I'm a little bit heartbroken. At this, like within 2 months of me announcing that, CrossFit announced that they are completely dissolving their linear approach to get to the CrossFit Games. I mean, it's the Open, the regionals, then the CrossFit Games. It's a very systematic thing that's been going on since 2008, 2007.
And how do they change it? What is it now?
So now there's this whole new thing where every single country in the world that has a CrossFit gym through the Open, if you are the top person in your country, whether it's the United States, the most dense country in the world for CrossFitters, or you're Yugoslavia, where there's probably 3 CrossFitters, every single country takes 1 person forward to compete at the CrossFit Games. Now there's a second opportunity where there are 16 to 18 sanctioned events around the world that you can go compete at, but you need to win them to go forward to the CrossFit Games. So that's the two options. Now, the reason why I'm sitting in front of you lovely gentlemen right now is option number 3. It is the wild card. Now, this is supposed to also be known as the blowhard card, and that is the card where if you're a hot shot and you think you can fuck them up, and you say it loud enough and you represent yourself well enough, they will give you one of these 4 cards. And that is what we are doing here today. That is what we are going to do.
I think we could get
Keep
you a
the
car.
shit talking train
Dude,
going.
I swear to God, I'm going to blow a hole through those guys. So right now, that is what I'm designing myself to be. And I have to say, at this point right now, if you put me at the CrossFit Games, I will not be the champion. But am I training to be that champion? 100% I am. And I would not be here speaking as loud as I am right now if I did not believe in that opportunity.
Wow.
How's the Olympic lifting
Yeah,
going?
tell me about that.
So if you had to look across the board, let's say the standards for being a world-class powerlifter would be maybe 1,000. Now this is, let's say heavyweights, just so we can get it across the board. 1,000 pound, like 900 to 1,000 pound squat.
Yeah.
Deadlift anywhere from like high 8s to 1,000. I think they're pulling 1,100 now, but it's like one random guy. And then bench press is like 700 to high 8s. So in CrossFit, if you went to Olympic lifting in CrossFit, which is so much lower than the standard for like world class guys, you're looking at a snatch of like 315 being the top. You're looking at the clean and jerk being around 375, 380. And those guys are usually good at one thing, and then they're kind of like, in the trash with other ones. I'm at 240 snatch and 300 on the clean and jerk.
Okay.
Now, this has all been developed over with like 4 months of dedicated training.
4 months.
4 months.
So
Now,
you still got a lot to.
I got a lot to go. Now, I'll be totally honest. It's just like if you guys were all recreational golfers and you played, once or twice a month and you swung and you just did your own thing, like you could play a game of golf. But then all of a sudden you decided you're like, I'm going to go to a tournament with all my friends at work, and I want to prove to my boss that I can stick it to him. Like and you went like 4 or 5 days a week to the driving range. That's where I'm at right now. And like I'm dedicated and I'm ready to crush.
Now, have you kind of tested yourself and dropped in some CrossFit locations and just seen how you measure up against a lot of these people?
Oh yeah, constantly. Whenever I get the chance to go up against like anybody who's a high level CrossFitter, like I'll just be like, hey, like you're around, you want to do it, and we just beat each other to death.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm right there alongside of them. But then all of a sudden, like if they decide to pull out that one sword, which is Olympic lifting, they will beat me. But not too long ago, I decided on my own accord to go to my friend Jacob Hepner. You guys would love this guy. You should definitely have him on. He's probably the fittest man in the world, I would say, but he just hasn't got the accolades to back it up. And I went and did the regionals from last year at his barn in Kansas. And of the 5 workouts, I set the world record on one, took third in the world on another one, and then I was middle of the pack on the last 3. So there's a couple things right now that I'm really, really at the tip of the spear for, and now I'm just kind of sharpening the rest of my tools, getting ready for the next thing.
How big of a role does the psychological factor play? I can imagine you're the kind of guy, if I were to compete against you, you'd fuck with me.
100%.
Yeah, is that your game? Is that part of your strategy?
Well, I let you know that the reality is that I'm going to crush you. It's just a matter of time. And I think a lot of people don't understand this. It's like competition is something that is beautiful, and it needs to be respected in the way that you need to be a sportsman, but at the same time, you also need to have your passion behind it. I think passion's the most important thing in the universe. I think it's the highest level of energy to dedicate towards anything. I think people like, they're like, love is the most important thing in the universe. I'm like, no, passion.
that voice too.
Passion behind the love is the most important thing in the universe. And like, passion behind your pursuit and whatever journey you have is the most important thing. And what I do is I let people know how passionate I am about it by trash talking them to their face. And I'm not the kind of guy who will talk badly about someone behind someone's back. Like I straight up will tell you as soon as I know. And whether it's on social media or to your face. And it's not because I disrespect you. It's just because like I know what I believe in, and I'm just making sure you heard me.
Hey, as long as you back it up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's where you see the Conor McGregor or some guy that's really good at the trash talking, but can back it up.
Yeah, but it also builds your brand. I mean, this guy right here is like you're a network TV dream. I mean,
I know, right?
So
Yeah.
I would feel like they should give you a card if they want good ratings.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody in your crosshairs? Anybody you want to compete against more than others?
Well, the thing that I hate the most, and I swear to God, hand on my heart, I have nothing against this guy because he is he is what everyone should look up to and aspire to be, is Matt Frazier. He's won the games the past 3 years. And the only reason why I want to beat him is not because I don't care about the money. You could keep the money. I'll donate it to charity if that's what, an opportunity. But I hate people who win so easily. And when I say to other athletes, I was like, if you guys just sacked up and did something about this and recognized it's not a game of you against him, it's all of you against him. So what it is, and someone mentioned this, I can't remember the interview, if everybody did a little bit better, it would pull off of his performance. And like that's what people need to recognize. And if I need to be the iceberg that takes down the Titanic, I will be. Like I don't care. I just want to get in there, and I like beating the best.
Do you see any cracks in his performance or his armor? What are his weaknesses, do you think?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing that I've recognized is he hasn't ever had anybody really rubbing up against him. He doesn't have like somebody every single workout pushing him. He's good at trash talking. He's good at the sport, and he's good at he's calm, cool, and collected. He never has that. So what you need to do in a sport like this with somebody who's such a hot shot is you need to take the air out of their tires a little bit. And what you need to do is you need to get in front of the camera before he does. Get out in front of him a little bit or be behind him and let him know that you're right there. And I'm not saying specifically him. He's just a really easy example because he's been the 3-time champion. With somebody like that, that's how I would play the sport. I would go in to an event and I would destroy the first one as hard as I could. And I'd burn them to the ground, like everybody, and they'd know. They're like, fuck, this is the guy that they talked about. And then after that, I would let them know the next one, even though it wasn't my strong suit. I'm like, hey, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a nap during this one, and I'm going to let you blow out your tires, and then I'm going to fuck you up on the next one. And what you do is it's strategy. It's not trying to be a pig of an athlete. It's being a person who is, it's a game of strategy. I always play things like chess. You have your pawns, which are the ones you can just dish to the side, and there's suckers who go after pawns. I love suckers.
It's psychological warfare.
Yeah. And then you have your cross game. So you got to always be looking at angles that people aren't paying attention to, and then you just have your bull, where you're going to drive forward and you're going to smash people. And like you got to have that approach. So like when I do Spartan races still, like what I do is there's the running aspect, which is like it's not necessarily essential. Like you can be a front runner, you can scare people, but what I do is I make sure when it's time, I will do the bait and switch. Like I'll make sure that I pretend like I'm tired just before a heavy obstacle, and then I'll get behind them and let the person get ahead of me, and then I'll pick up something super fucking heavy and I'll blast it super hard and it fly right past you, and they're like, shit, Hunter's got so much energy.
I've heard you basically rub up against people, throw elbows out there,
Rubbin's racing.
Physical.
I have literally put a man into a tree as hard as I could because he wouldn't get out of my way. He was one of my best competitors. I was like, Matt, get out of my way. And he was just blocking me, and I just slammed him. But yeah, these are all strategies that I've been exercising for years.
You talked about your weakness being Olympic lifts, and now you're focusing on them. What are your strengths? Like, what are you going to bring to the CrossFit stage that you think you'll just kill people at?
Oh, dude, engine. If you think about it, so if you looked at the CrossFit Games, usually the design is 12 to 14 events. I would say a third of them are cardiovascular based, like in its entirety. So like last year, they had an all-out cycling event. They had a marathon row in the first day. So those are completely metabolic, like, just like long distance, easy going things. Easy. Then they had an obstacle course event while wearing a weight vest, like, that's my specialty. So that's 3 things. Then they had a swim, paddle, run. That's 4 things. Then they had what is it? They had this thing that was called chaos, which is basically like going across a football field while going through like exercises. Like they had swings, sled drags, everything like that. That was, even though it's breaking it up, doing different kind of like tasks, it's still a metabolic thing. And just so what it is what I told you guys before, what I've designed my engine to do, and a lot of athletes have, so I'm not trying to say this is going to be an easy battle by any means, is you find your level of sustainability. And what your goal is to have your maximum level of horsepower, but then being able to be a fuel-efficient beast at that horsepower. Because if you think about those drag cars that go down the strip as fast as they can, their gas tank will be empty at that same rate within minutes. Now, what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to be like a Formula One car. Like you know that you have to do lap upon lap upon lap. And if you have to go in and get fuel, you're going to break down and people are going to pass you. So what I've done is I just keep on taking these percentages, which are 100%, and I find how to ride 90 as long as I can.
How does your training do that? What does your training look like when you're doing that? I mean, I know you're doing a lot of skills with the Olympic lifting, but to keep building or working on that engine, how do you construct your routines?
Well, I built a base from just years of doing this kind of stuff, so that's a pretty easy thing. Just like I'm sure you guys have all been in the gym for so many years, like you know that you can put 225 on the bar and do bench press no matter what.
Right.
So that's there. Most importantly, what I've done is I've started to go back through my research, and you guys ever heard of Arthur Jones?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
inventor of Nautilus equipment.
Yeah. So I've been doing research, and I just started reading. I read it years ago, but Mike
Heavy Duty
Mentzer. Yeah. So I started reading that book again just recently, and I'm trying to find ways. Like I always knew that time under tension is the number one way to develop endurance and strength, and being able to be fatigue resistant. So now I'm trying to find ways inside of a strength set, which might be a typical thing to you guys, like 5x5, and then you know what cluster training is. So cluster training is another breakdown of it. So I'll use sets like that, but now I'm trying to find ways of doing these kind of A/B sets where a set will be 5, like a cluster set, and then what I'll do is I'll take that same next set and I'll just put the weight on the bar and I'll go up and down as many times as I can at 90%. So let's say I'll do a set of 5 and then I'll go and try to get anywhere from 9 to 14 on the next one. And then I'll do a slow tempo version of set of 5 and then I'll go back again. And it's much more exhausting, but what I'm understanding now is there's always different levels of braking in your body. You may get really tired in that front rack position, and the reason why you break down is your lower back, but your legs and your shoulders are totally fine. So find ways of finding more tension in that position in your back. So that's the kind of strategy I'm doing right now. I do have a coach, but I'm just kind of taking my scientific knowledge of myself and the world and putting it into my training.
Yeah, you seem to have a really, really fast ability to regenerate energy. Ben Greenfield talked about this for himself. He said that his ability to regenerate energy is what made him initially good at what he did. Yep. And it sounds like you have that natural ability as well, where you don't have to rest very long between sets to get your strength back.
No. I mean, part of it's training, and the other part of it's genetic. There are some people who are just never going to be able to do some of the things that I do, and there's some things that I'll never be able to do that other people can do.
Right.
So
now, what about injuries? Have you had because this kind of training is very high risk, obviously.
Yeah.
Have you suffered any injuries throughout your career?
No, not really.
Wow, really? That's crazy.
Super durable.
You know what was super shitty? Just recently, back in April, and this was just 6 weeks before the TMX title, and I was racing a stadium race, which is pretty much a very small thing on the totem pole of racing, when it comes to priority. I jumped down a stair set and had to cut right, and my ankle just rolled over and snapped, and I popped the ligaments on the left side of my ankle. That's probably been the most devastating injury in my career because it was so bad that it came. If you think about the ankle joint being right here, it tore all the ligaments down at the side, the right side of my right ankle, which is pronates out to the right. And it was so bad that it came back into the joint and the ball, basically the bone socket of where the ankle meets the foot. And it was just traumatized. I couldn't flex back or forth at all. So
did you have to get surgery on it or heal on its own?
No, I'm a big believer in not going to the doctor.
You didn't get it checked out at all?
No, I did. My family brought me in, and they got so upset with me when I walked out of the doctor's. They told me I needed to be in a boot for 8 weeks, and I couldn't run at all. And I was like, listen, I have my world title in 6 weeks, and I'm going to race it, and it's not going to be in a boot, so I'm taking it off.
Did you race?
I did race. And I won. by a large
Oh
margin.
my god.
Yeah.
This guy.
But
Give this man a wild card.
Yeah,
give this man a wild
man.
card.
No. It's a reality of my situation. Like if there's a bone hanging out of my flesh, like I'll be like, wait a second, this isn't natural. But if it's something that is somewhat sustainable through physical therapy, that's when I've never had such a major injury where it's like an ACL tear or anything. And I have my fingers crossed, but also it's because I'm very diligent in what it takes to be healthy. Like I'm not the kind of guy, like I learned at a young age, I'll never forget, I ran a 10K all out in 2013. And then I came in to my gym and did this workout called King Kong, which is a CrossFit workout with heavy deadlifts, heavy cleans, ring muscle ups, and handstand push-ups. It's basically it's your max weight. And I decided that I would do that right after running full speed, and I threw my back out. And I knew right then and there, I was like, there's just some things you cannot do in the same day. And I've basically a lot of what I do is kind of like risk reward at this point.
What are some of your health practices to maintain your health? Like, do you have a stress management protocol? Do you meditate? Do you do anything like that?
I have a therapist, not in the way like a therapist like where I sit down and cry on a couch, but it's more of like his name's Devo. He's one of the greatest guys. He works with a lot of athletes who have been in rehab in Malibu. Like a lot of these guys, Malibu's like just stacked with rehabs for some reason.
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know. Well, it's just, if you want to...
Is that because all the
Hollywood
celebrities?
stars?
If you want to
coming
recover
in.
from being an addict, you might as well do it on the beach, I guess. So he and I knew each other for years, and I was like, you know what, dude, I'd like it if you helped me out. So we took our friendships and turned it into a little bit of more of a convenient like business relationship as well. That's been something that's been very helpful for me because I'll admit probably the hardest part of being a very driven person is running over people. You literally run people over, whether it be your family, relationships. Like I'm so bad at being a boyfriend just because I do not know how to emotionally put myself you before me. And not because I'm an asshole. It's just because like I just don't see emotions. Like when someone's like, oh, I had a really hard day at work. I'm like, what was so hard about your day at work? Like you had a bad conversation? Like it's your job. Stop complaining. Like if I complained about like, oh, I had a hard day at the gym today. Like, well, go get another job. Like do something else. So like things like that are very difficult for me. So like having a stress relationship.
Where do you think that comes from? Does that go all the way back to childhood? What's your relationship like with your parents? Like where does that? I lack empathy for a lot of people too, and that's an issue I have. But I know where it's rooted from. Do you know where yours is rooted from?
Probably my dad. Like my dad and I are best friends, but I think I'm one of 4 boys, and like everybody's super successful. My dad was, graduated top of his class from Harvard. His father didn't even go to college, but then started his own business. Was the head of. He was the head editor of the equivalent of like the Detroit Times, and then started all these other businesses. My other grandfather's head of orthopedic surgery for all of New England, and like everybody was just a boss. So to be in the room with all these people and all my brothers who are successful as well, you have to just.
Were you the youngest?
Yeah, I'm the youngest. So
it is, man. Oh my God. Yeah.
So you had to. Now it wasn't like I had a chip on my shoulder. It was just like, all right, I'm 4 feet tall and everyone else is 6 feet tall. Like I need to say something or do something. And I think really when you're in that kind of testosterone driven room, there's not room for crying. Because if you start crying, everyone's like, fuck, leave Hunter alone. Yeah. Let's just ditch this dude.
Peace out.
Yeah, I think maybe that's it. But I'm not going to say I had a bad childhood by any means. Like I don't have like a sob story where I was like beaten or left in a dark closet.
I would think there were some really high expectations, and being the youngest, though, that you had a lot to live up to. That probably felt like a lot of pressure on you, yeah?
I did nothing. I never did any schoolwork. I was a good athlete. I was fun to be around, but like everybody was top of the class. Like a couple of my brothers are Ivy League people, and they're successful doctor, lawyer, hedge fund guy. And then there's me, the mud run champ, baby. Yeah.
So that's a lot of pressure, because if you're going to choose a path like that, like it almost is like you got to be the greatest at it. Then, like if you're gonna hang with all the brothers, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I really don't know how it all came together. We have a unique circumstance where everyone was actually really supportive. There was never a point in my life where if people were like, if you don't win this, like you're not worth as much to us. Like it never felt like that. So. I don't know where the drive came from, but I think it was just a very well-designed circumstance where our family was all high achievers, and it just seemed natural to do the same.
Does everybody have charisma like you?
My dad does. My brother Ash does. My brother Garrett and Baxter, they're more kind of reserved, but they're also very intelligent. They can, if they were sitting here right now and you're asking questions, they could talk just as well as I do. But I don't know. And my mom was she was very good at laughing. I think that's where I learned to laugh probably the most. So she gave me that, and probably my dad and my brothers, they gave me more of the confidence to talk a lot.
Now, you obviously have your sights on CrossFit, but are you also looking beyond and seeing how you can grow beyond that? Do you have aspirations for anything out of that, or are you just looking straight at CrossFit for now?
Yeah, well, weren't you also working with the WWE? And
oh gosh, yeah.
I want to talk about that.
That would be my dream job.
Okay.
I did have the offer for it.
Really?
I'll give you guys like the immediate. I think it is intelligent to understand what is coming tomorrow, but I think it's more important to have the focus and the drive to own today.
Right.
And I'm not I didn't read that from a book, and I'm not trying to be trendy. I think it's just really important to understand how important it is to be great at what you say you're going to be great at, and never give too much of your energy towards something that is a potential, potential that is outside of what you want to be your reality.
Sure.
So I know what I would like to have in my future. Probably most importantly for me is to have a successful family. I think,
nice.
Yeah, I want to be as hardworking. Like I'll wake up, get on a flight, come see you guys, and go back home and go about my day. And I will do that until it is time to start a family. Like I'm on planes all over the country, if not the world, every week, just because I'm chasing opportunity. Outside of that, let's say everything worked well in my sporting career, I completed everything I wanted to do in obstacle course racing. I completed the opportunity of going to the CrossFit Games and representing the fact that our sport and athletes like myself are fit enough to be on that stage. And I felt confident in that. Like I didn't have to look behind me and have regret. Probably the next thing I would like to do is have the opportunity to explain to people who are in my position the path and the easiest way to go about it, not only in the physicality, but also the emotional response. Like me being a kid who was so destructive in a way that I didn't understand how what I was doing was probably not best shaped for my time. Now, like I woke up in the morning and I got high and I made jokes in class, and I never assembled myself to have a successful future. It just ended up aligning the way I wanted it to in its randomness. Like I'm so lucky that I have this opportunity right now, because most kids who didn't have the family to afford it or didn't have the people surrounding them with the positivity would never be in my shoes right now, because I was arrested 4 times. I was in front of cops well more than that. I was expelled from multiple schools. I was had the grade point average that would not even get you into community college. And I'm a little bit heartbroken knowing that there's a lot of people who did the same thing, mostly also because I was pumped full of so much prescription medication at a young age that like it was ridiculous now that I look back on it. Like, you can't just take a kid and give them 4 extremely powerful drugs and expect them to be like a well-rounded human being when you have uppers, downers, and in-betweeners trying to basically sedate the kid. So I would like to be able to take the platform that I've built and help kids out in that regard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
see, it's like on one hand you're cocky as hell, and then the other hand, this humble
you're
side
a sweetheart.
comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
on top of that.
Well, I got a good heart, like family and friends first. But I would not be able to do what I do at the level I want to unless I worked hard enough. Like to afford being able to take my friends out to dinner or be able to get people good, put my kids through college, things like that. You do need to work hard, and if you don't bark as loud as you want to bite, then no one's going to pay attention. So that's why I have to be who I am.
You talked about prescription drugs as a kid. Was it like ADD medication? I'm just guessing.
Dude, it was ridiculous. They had me on like 120 milligrams of things that like if you took a 10 right now, you guys would feel high as a kite. And for some reason, they had this like inverse idea that like if he's so high and then we try to bring him higher, potentially he shall crash. Like I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. And then they had me on tranquilizers. They had me on bipolar medication.
God.
Holy shit.
Yeah, dude, it was nuts, dude. So what I learned to do is I would get handfuls of pills and I could somehow roll them towards my fingers and lock them in and go like this and pretend like I ate them. So, and then my parents would be like, okay, and I'd throw them out because I knew at a young age, I was like, this shit is not good. Like I remember in my 5th grade, I lived in like a fishbowl in my brain. Like everybody, like I could see everybody, but I couldn't communicate. Like I was so like twisted out of my brain from this medication. And I also gained this really weird twitch where I would just scratch my head constantly to the point where I'll never forget. I scratched a hole through my head. Like I scratched a hole through my head and like into a bald spot. I woke up the next morning and my hair was just like filled with pus and it like created this massive scab. And I was like, this is fucked up. So I stopped taking the medication, and God, like it. I look back at it now, and I think to the kids that are like still being put on this medication. Like I'm not gonna lie. 2 days ago, I talked to somebody, and they had told me about some article or something they'd watched where the guy who had founded the idea of ADD realized on his deathbed, he mentioned that it was basically just a farce. Like he had created, he was like kind of like a psychotherapist who'd kind of like created this like pseudo categories. Like, well, this child must have attention deficit disorder. Like
Let's give him some meth.
Yeah. We shall give him
to bring them down. Yeah.
So
It's funny too because those the same characteristics that you were medicated for as a kid are the same characteristics that you're displaying right now as we're talking to you, and it's probably some of the same characteristics that give you the ability to hyper focus on your sport.
Yeah.
Have the drive that you have. They also contribute to some of your charisma, which is probably going to help you succeed even more in the sport because let's face it, these are commercial brands, and having somebody who's a champion who also can get on camera and do all that stuff, that's a big win for them. Those same characteristics when you're a kid, they don't want them. Like here's some drugs, sit in the corner, be quiet, and write down your, do your homework.
It's a crazy thought to think that, you need to wake up in the morning and leave your room and then go sit down in a room the size of this that we're sitting in right now with 20, 30 other kids and be quiet for 8 hours.
Right.
And like in reality, kids do need to move and express themselves. Mm-hmm. And what they've done is they've turned us into caged animals. Like, have you ever seen a dog that's been in a cage all day long?
Yeah.
And then they get out and they freak the fuck out and they're like jumping on top of people. And you're like, why is this such a bad dog? Like, no, it's not a bad dog. Like you basically treated it poorly and now it just doesn't know how to react in its situation. Like you've given it a little bit of freedom and it's going to act out. Right. And that's what ended up happening with me. And I'm not going to say that I'm an angel, but I think if things were designed a little bit differently, and I hope that I can help pursue and give people the opportunity where it doesn't have to be like that for them.
Now, how old were you when you first were getting medicated, and then at what age did you say, fuck this, never taking this shit again?
God, it had to have been 3rd or 4th grade that I started taking like high levels of medication, like patches, pills, fucking everything.
Wow.
And I recognized probably 10, 11, 12 that like it just didn't make me feel good. Because they were powerful drugs. Like I wouldn't eat ever. I wouldn't eat, and then I would binge eat. Because like you'd be so high and sweat all the time, you're like, it was super fucked up. Wow. And God, dude, I was court mandated when I was going through that year of rehab and then the year after rehab to be on the same amount of drugs. And like that's crazy to think that you can court mandate people to be on drugs. So it's like
that the government can say take these. Or
yeah.
That's crazy.
So I recognize, but dude, as soon as I stopped taking these things and like I understood how to channel myself, as long as I wake up in the morning, move a little bit, and it settles me completely. I can sit on a plane, I can read emails, write anything. Like, whereas before, like they put me in a room and I immediately started like twitching and kicking because like you just can't do that to somebody.
Did your brothers experience the same thing growing up? Did they have to go on medication?
Garrett had dyslexia and like had to just go to school for a little bit and figure things out. And Ashley, he had a little bit going on, but I mean everybody kind of conquered it in their own way. I think I probably was the farthest off the spectrum. I just had the most energy, I guess, and a different approach to going about the day than they did. But no, I definitely was the I was the black sheep.
Looking back, now that you have that hindsight, what do you think would have been a better approach? Or let's say you have a kid who's identical to you, and you're recognizing these things. Like, how would you approach their day or their schooling?
I'd probably start by homeschooling my kids for a while. I think like being able to create that bond, and also I'd selfishly learn learn a lot of the things that were going on through school. I think it would help create a bond between myself and them. And I think I just have to have my own self-experimentation of learning what the kids are actually going through, because myself giving away my kid for the entire day and then allowing people to give me reconnaissance information on how they've been acting without me actually watching, like which was going on in my circumstance, is probably not the best way. Like I should probably watch my kid go through it on my own. So that's probably my first approach. Also just understanding that there's probably going to be schools that are better designed for people like that. And whether I have to be somebody who helps create that or find those things, that's probably my next step.
Do you think activity would have helped you? Like if you...
Oh, yeah. Like I went to military school, and I actually got really good grades at military school because they had us moving around a lot, and then going to like study hall, and then like going to like the pool and doing pool drills, and then going to like, I didn't do the weightlifting, but kids were doing weightlifting classes and stuff. Like there was like all this regiment of not necessarily negativity, like some regiment can be associated with, but it was just like systematic in the way that you had to like get up, go in the morning, go here, go run, go do this, go do that, go to class, go do this, go do that. And I think that was even better for me. Even though military school is a rough place on itself, it was better, at least in that degree. If
you had to get a job now, do you think you'd want to be an entrepreneur or work for someone else? Because I have a guess. I guess that I feel like you'd be unemployable, not because you'd be a bad... Not because you'd be a bad employee, but because, and by the way, I identify with this, okay? Not because you'd be a bad employee, but because you'd want to have the autonomy to do your own shit. Am I hitting it? Yeah, no, you're very right. I always thought it'd be super funny if I could be in office, though. I would want to be...
That'd be like the best sitcom ever.
I want to be a CEO. Like my dad used to mess with the employees so much. We grew up in his office, so I thought to myself, I was like, I would have so much fun fucking with these people, like stealing.
That's his drive to become a CEO so he can fuck with his employees.
Yeah, like steal their keyboard, take wheels off their chair, things
leave
like
porn
that.
Porn on people's computer.
Exactly.
You can't do that anymore, Justin.
Well, whatever. I would do it.
I thought that would be a blast. I'm hoping that I become successful enough that I do have employees that I can continue that idea with. But yeah, I would like to be on my own. I think I'm always going to have to be my own boss because I think I just go to the beat of my own drum. I know that my ideas and my drive will be intense enough that I can pursue it. I'm not like kind of like this whimsical person like, well, maybe I'll try this today or this or this. Like, I'm so creative. No, I'm not going to be that person. So, I think if I can get through this whole athletic thing, I'll have a good path ahead of me and I'll be my own boss.
Now, how far do you have to get in order to be able to be a full-time obstacle course racer where your sponsors are paying you enough money that you can have a livelihood? Like, is it lucrative? Is it something that you had to...
Yeah, do you have to win a certain amount of races?
Right, did you have to work for a long time before you got to a point where you didn't have to?
Well, ironically, I had built up my career to be exactly what I wanted it to be. I was a personal trainer in Malibu. I was teaching at Soul Cycle, which I don't know if you guys ever tried one of those, which is fun. I was teaching there in Malibu.
Too hard. No, I haven't done it.
It is very hard. That's why I loved it.
That and the bike
Sal likes to wear the tights. Yeah,
I
dress like I do Soul Cycle, but I don't take the class.
I was working for them, and I never collected my paychecks for them. They probably owe me like a good like $6,000.
Wait a minute, you showed up to work and then didn't.
I never collected my paychecks.
Why does that make sense?
I don't know, because I was like, I'm just having a blast.
Hey, you're forgetting something.
I was just having a blast. So I was working there for a while, and I started doing this. Like I don't even know if I had that much money in my pocket when I started. Like I was really I would go to the store and I'd buy a whole chicken and a couple things of coconut water, and that would be like my lunch. Like I was very cheap because I didn't really need anything other than food and weights. So in the beginning, I was dead broke, and I would just have people started buying me flights. So like, hey Hunter, do you want to go to this race? I was like, yeah. And then I checked my email box. I had a flight. So like it just happened really quickly to the point where I don't really know. I could not map out how to pursue what I did, to be honest. Yeah. And then, gosh, it increased so much to the point where I was starting to make a lot of money, and I was like, wow, like I don't even know how this started. So like I'm not trying to brag and say I'm rich by any means. It was just like it went from being a kid who lived in like a little apartment, was dead broke, like didn't have a car, didn't have anything, to all of a sudden like winning things within a year and a half. Like I was winning things like Broken Skull Ranch, which immediately gave me $50,000, and then winning like these other championships. Like when we first started, like winning $500 was a big deal, and I was like, I'm a fucking beast. $500. Did you see this big cardboard check? And now it's a lot of it relies on the sponsorship. But if I could backtrack it and just try to pinpoint where it started and where it is now, I'll say at first it was success. Like you do need to be successful. There's the Instagram booty model approach where like you just take your clothes off, take pictures, and hopefully people like will send you checks to wear like their thong or t-shirt.
It's a valid model.
Yeah. It is. I think I might go back to it.
Adam tried it for a
Try
while.
it out, yeah.
Listen,
Didn't work out so well for me.
I'm not going to crack on it because I may still go back. There's that approach, but then I tell people there's the approach of just success. Like you have to own what you're involved with. So even if it's not even the biggest race platform ever, like you're just doing some of these small OCR events, like if you start winning and showing like you're relatable to the crowds and that you are relevant in the industry, you can slowly start to pick up on that. And I think that can be across all platforms, whether it be, you know, being a bodybuilder and like, you know, some kind of small supplement industry wants to support you. Whether that be a CrossFitter, you know, a track runner, whatever it is, that's how you have to do it. You know, win small and focus on that. And then what I did was I kept on growing past that and started to get into bigger platforms. And I think it was probably just the way I talked and the way I walked where people wanted to start sponsoring me. Like Reebok immediately, I was their first sponsored athlete. Amelia, who you guys know, was like soon after she was sponsored with them. So they started to come in and pick people up. And I can't tell you, like, I think about how crazy I am. I think I told you guys this earlier. I don't know why people sponsor me. Like, if you walk down the street, I mean, you see what I'm wearing right now. They're like, that man has to.
Yeah, Reebok's pissed right now.
Yeah, they're like,
this
that
motherfucker.
Man.
We can't get him in our gear. We send him free shit all the time.
Oh, dude, I'll never forget.
Dude, Magnum PI.
2013 World Championships for Spartan race. We had an athlete panel that was in Vermont. And like it was sponsored by Reebok, and it was a very big deal for them to have like their athletes be there on that panel. And I showed up in my muddy combat boots and like a flannel shirt at the thing, and the guy just looked at me up and down. Like I could just tell he was like, "Fuck, this guy is such an idiot." And I was just chilling there. They luckily took my shirt off and put like a Reebok shirt on, because you couldn't see below the table. But I was wearing muddy combat boots, so I think I'm lucky to have people believing in me. I would probably say that at best, because I don't know if I would sponsor me if I was a sponsor.
Do you ever feel like you're living in like a simulation, like you're a video game character? Only because I'm listening to your story, I'm like, this sounds so crazy, but it also makes sense at the same time. You ever think like this is just not real?
It isn't real. I'll tell you guys a crazy story. So the way it kind of started me coming out to California was I went to college and I recognized I was basically paying all my friends in beer to do my homework, and I would just sit next to them and drink while they did my homework for me. Nice. And I was like, I don't want to do this stuff. So I was like, let's just hang out. And I would go to the gym and lift a lot. And I immediately learned, I was like, this is not my life. So I was like, I'm going to get out of here and go do something. And then my friend, I was at a party and I was really ripped at the time, and I popped out of a door in my underwear, and this person looked at me and was like, yo, you should be a model, bro. And I was like, fuck yeah, I should be a model. I was like, so then within a couple of months of that, I had a modeling contract. I swear to God. And then I went down to Miami. I got signed by a modeling agency, and then I was like up in New York taking pictures. Then I was out in Barcelona living, like being a model over there. And then I quit that industry, and then I came over here and I was like, I want to be a professional mud runner, bro. And then next thing you know, like this happened. So it does feel like a video game. Like you have like these two paths. Like, which way do you want to go, Hunter? I'm like, I'm taking the left, baby. Like, and it ends up working out. And I can honestly say the only reason why I probably have come as far as I have is because when I start something, I don't stop talking about it, and I don't stop living it as hard as I can until I'm done with it.
Wow. Who did you model for?
I know.
It was usually like Abercrombie and Fitch was the first big company that got me.
What was that world like? What's that whole model? That must be so.
What was your signature pose? You know what I mean?
I would like purse my lips and pretend like I could smell bacon across the room, like. And it's a great visual right there. And I'd flare my nostrils a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was usually the look.
I'm so glad we're recording this on video.
Yeah. So, you know what? It was interesting because what my understanding of like a physical body looked like was like shredded. Like you had to be a fucking twisted steel and sex appeal. And a lot of these guys were like so androgynous. Like they were like this, like these, like they were like skin like scarecrows. They were just had these like super angular, lean bodies. They like if you looked at them right now, like I don't know how any woman would be attracted to that, but they're getting these humongous contracts. And I would walk in there with like an 8-pack, like veins from toe to my forehead, and I was like, "Give me the fucking job, bro. I'm here. I'm here. Look at this. Look at this. Do you not see this?" So it was very interesting, and like getting to travel around and meeting all these models, and everybody has their own like personality and their own thing. It was very fun. Like my favorite story about modeling was I moved to Barcelona, and this kid ended up being my roommate. He was my first time ever meeting an Australian person. His name was Brent McCormack. And I didn't realize that the word cunt meant bro to them.
Yeah.
They love
like,
throwing that around. What you fucking doing out of you shit cunt? I'm like, did you just call me a shit cunt? I was like, I'll stab you in the forehead. Like, say that again. He's like, come at me, bro.
He's like, fucking cunt, dude. He's like, where's my fucking protein shake, you shit cunt? I'm like, that's it again. He called me a cunt.
It's going down.
Yeah. So, like, I hated him at first, but then I recognized like that he was just being a bro, calling me a bro.
Right.
And like I just had to learn, like that was like my first introduction to like the outside world of Connecticut and New York, where we're like just like super vanilla bean people. And like I had to get thrown into these like rooms with people I had never met before, and it was
So was this a competitive environment as well, or what?
Well, I made it a competitive environment because that's all I understood.
Give me that bear rug.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, it's an interesting industry, like where I'm sure it's just like acting, like the way to win is not systematic. It's like very like who you know, what you got going on, right place, right time. And I was like, I don't have time for this shit. I was like, I just want to be a beast. And I thought that that's how you won, but it wasn't. So I'll admit, like I met so many cool people. One of my best friends is still an agent that I've worked with for years. Like I got contacted the other day. I posted, like last year I had long blonde hair. I'll show you guys my license. I look ridiculous. I posted a picture of like me in my underwear in the mirror with long blonde hair. L'Oreal immediately contacts me. They're like, we're flying you out to Spain for a photo shoot. I was like, yep. Like it was ridiculous. So like there's so many cool things came out of it, but in reality it's something I probably won't pursue still. Because being a model is just weird. It was. There were some points that looked. Where I felt exactly like Zoolander. We were doing Zoolander
Lots
type
of
shit.
orange frappuccinos.
You just feel weird about yourself or what?
No, it was just weird. Like I'll never forget. So that apartment in Barcelona had this guy named Adam Hamilton, and he was like the just most best looking person you've ever seen in your life. Like he would spend like 45 minutes brushing his teeth every night. Like had to like make sure it was perfectly pearly white. Would do his lotion every single night and like walk around with masks and like be in his PJs. Like we'd look just like the Zoolander guys. And then Brent, my roommate Brent, he was just like a total, just don't be upset, Brent. He was always ripped on cocaine and always gambling, and like would just like be like high, book a big job, come back, blow all his money, and then like there was me who was just like basically like a Labrador Retriever. I was like, let's lift weights. Like, let's go do this, bro. Like, let's do I was like, let's go subway surfing. Let's go hang with chicks, bro. Like, it was just like a humongous cocktail of people that was very interesting.
How old are you at that time?
19.
Oh, so you're a baby.
So, 19, 20, 21.
Wow.
Yeah. And like going to castings, think about how ridiculous it is walking around with a gigantic like bold like a folder, like hardcover folder with pictures of you inside of it, like walking around the city. You're like, hey, check this out, bro. Like there's me in a sweater. Like there's me in
Do you like?
There's me in my underwear, but come over a couple more pages. There's another one of me in my underwear if you don't like that one. Like you just
Here it is in navy blue.
I know. I was like, I think back on it. I was like, God, you were such an idiot.
Now, was the money good? Was the money good?
I mean, it's good in the way that you you were always kind of like waiting paycheck to paycheck, and then like if you did hit it, you hit it big. Like one of my buddies, Brian Szymanski's been the cover of Chanel for years, and that guy, he was patient. He was a super handsome guy. Like he always wanted it. Like he was on a lot of big jobs, but he waited a couple years. His name went up the ladder, and then all of a sudden he booked that job. Like I'm sure if you waited and like I had waited a long time, maybe things would have opened up more for me. But best job I ever booked was probably 10,000 with a couple like residuals following it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you pick up any skills from modeling that have benefited you now? And
no, there's no redeeming qualities for being a model. It's like, you know what? Like I don't know. You're never gonna bump into a model who's gonna be like, he's like, I started my multi-billion-dollar business because of the skills I learned as a model.
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
It sounds like Zoolander just listening to you.
Yeah. So all I'll say is I got to experience life. Like I'm very happy that I got to do the drugs and do all the stupid things at a very young age because I was able to check that off the list. Because I think a lot of people in their like a middle-aged person will like look back on their life in this crisis and be like, I didn't do enough, and then they'll buy like a sports car and divorce their wife and start dating a woman with double D tits and be like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
So I had all that stuff at a young age. And now I've just gotten tension. Like I just want to crush what I want to crush.
Wow.
I love it.
You take a pretty kind of scientific approach to your training, or like that? Are you like that with your nutrition as well?
Macronutrients, pretty diehard on that. I remember I was just listening to you talk about adding vegetables back. Like I don't eat vegetables at all.
None at all?
None. Like I just had a really bad gas station sandwich with a little like a piece of lettuce in it. That's pretty much like the most greens I've had.
How are you doing
in
now?
weeks? Right now?
Yeah.
I'm pretty good.
Okay.
Take another sip of this thing, it might be different. Yeah.
So what macros are you trying to hit every day? Just your regular balance?
I have like a whole breakdown on my phone. Like a good day with like 3 to 4 hours of training is like 5,000, 6,000 calories. Like, 600 to 700 grams of carbs, 240 protein, and like 140, 60 grams.
Those are my competing macros right there.
Were they really?
Damn near right around the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, man. Like I trained for years, and as soon as I started really hitting my macronutrients, like the muscle density and strength came up significantly.
Sure.
And I think
which macro was it that you were missing before?
Dude, you'd be so surprised how hard it is to get the amount of carbs you need.
Sure.
Like 700 grams of carbs is just like sitting there like trying to like be a mathematician. You're like, where the fuck am I gonna get these numbers?
Yeah.
I drink a ton of sugar. Like I take down so much honey. Hobie Call is one of the greatest, probably the greatest competitor in our sport in history, and he takes like a gallon of honey down a week. He's a beast. Raw honey. So he taught me about that. Maple syrup, pancakes, Kodiak cakes, lots of orange juice, Gatorade, like just shitty stuff. Stuff.
I'm thinking to myself, like, am I going to tell that? Do I need to tell him that?
No, he knows.
Oh, dude,
he's
for
aware.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I stopped doing what I do right now,
It's hard to get all that many calories,
I
man.
would have like both kinds of diabetes within a week.
Man.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Well, you're
but,
full throttle though.
Yeah, so you have to be. I don't think the diet. I would never prescribe my diet to anybody unless they were just so full on in.
Sure.
But the reality is, like, the more I eat, the leaner I get. Like right now, I haven't been really counting my macros and been paying attention because I've been on 2 jobs recently where I just will eat anything I can during the day, and it's hard to like look back like quarter of a brownie, whatever. So I actually probably gained a couple pounds of body fat, but if I started eating more sugar, like you'll start seeing like veins coming out of my stomach and like just.
I wonder if it's just because you're fueling muscle. Do you build muscle real easily?
Yeah. I'm lucky. I don't know how. Like some people are like, you're lucky to gain 5 pounds of muscle in a year. Like if I get on my steak, rice, and sugar diet, which is like my it's going to be a book coming out.
Steak, rice, and sugar.
Yeah. Chapter 1, lots of steak.
Hey,
Chapter 2, rice, sugar. Chapter 3. And yeah, it helps build really quickly, and the numbers go up. So I could say to anybody who's like probably in the gym right now saying that they've tried every plan, everything, like I'd be like, look at your nutrients, and I bet you're super far off. Like I've hung out with a lot of high-level CrossFitters, and I just make fun of them. I'm like, you eat like a bird. Like you don't eat enough. Like you're in there having your.
Oh, it's
little
ironic that a lot of them follow the paleo diet and stuff like that. Just as first,
Doesn't make any sense.
I don't think the high level competitors even do that anymore. That was a thing for a second, but paleo, you ain't gonna have the energy.
No. I think it'd be pretty disgusting. Like so a day looks like this. I'll wake up in the morning. I usually have Greek yogurt and a lot of honey. Then when I'm working out, I usually take in, like, I just put in a bunch of like aminos, creatine, and either like some kind of like, it's either with orange juice or something like that. And I mix that up and I'll drink it while I'm working out. After I'm done with working out, it's usually steak and rice or like eggs and toast and like a shake with 4 bananas, 4 scoops of protein, not 4 scoops, 2 scoops of protein, lots of maple syrup and carbohydrate powder mix. Mm-hmm. Then I'll rest for a bit. I'll have steak and rice, and then during, like, you know, I'll have a shake before workout, coffee and honey or some kind of pre-workout stuff. Then after working out, another ribeye and rice, and then like usually like a lot of like shitty ice cream and stuff before bedtime if I'm missing macros. And I wake up the next day and I'm like, you're stage ready.
Yeah. you do realize that you obviously you work your ass off, but you're also a genetic freak. You realize that, don't you?
Sure. There's things going on. My brother Garrett, he won't train for 6 months, and I'll be like, all right, we're going for a 10-mile run, and he'll do it. It just doesn't do it. Like, it's amazing. I'll put 315 on his back, and he'll just keep on squatting. He's like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, shut up, just put it down there. I'll get you out of there. And he does it like 3 to 5 times. I'm like, dude, you don't ever train. So we got some good stuff in our system. That's definitely true. Yeah, like if you looked at some kind of like body chart, I'd probably be like a pretty key, like a nailed on like mesomorph, if you want to categorize it.
Yeah.
He just did the model face right there.
Yeah,
that's a skill, buddy.
Yeah, that's fun.
So the broken skull, I didn't know that the broken skull kicks back $50,000 every time. So did you get that every because you're 8-time champion, aren't you?
Yeah, more than that. In 3 years, I made $195K.
Oh shit, just from them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, dude, it's an interesting industry. Like, if you play the game, like, there's so many shows that we have going on. Like, American Ninja Warrior is probably the biggest one, but it doesn't ever shell out money because almost no one ever wins it. Yeah. But there was things called like the Spartan Ultimate Challenge. That's $50K per win. Broken Skull,
Titan
Games
coming out.
I blew that. I didn't go on that show.
No,
I should have.
Oh, you'd kill that.
Well, the casting director called me. He's like, "We want you on the show." And I was like, "Can you tell me what it is? Because like I don't want to go on like a reality television show where I'm like hitting my friends with Nerf bats. Like I want to fucking rage." And they wouldn't give me any information. Then all of a sudden it comes out, and it's like I actually went and watched some of the filming, and I was like, "Fuck, I fucked up."
Yeah.
So Broken Skull Ranch was another really big thing. I just did a television show. They'd shoot me if I said the title of it, but there's huge cash in that. So there's all these reality television shows that shell out a lot of money. And then in our own professional circuit, you know, 25,000, 100,000, 10,000, 5,000. And then if you really bust your ass, sponsors are there.
What's the biggest purse that you've won?
Broken Skull.
Yeah.
75K.
Yeah.
75K in like a month. That was pretty good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Spartan doesn't put out that much, do they? They don't.
No, they have a lot. They have a lot, and I keep on telling the owner of the business. I was like, what you should do to get this more coverage is you should take out every weekend. There's like 5 races that are giving out $500 for first place, it's like $300 for second, and $100 for third, and they do that both on the male and female side, all over the world. And if what they did was they just condensed it down and beefed up a couple of the big ones, you'd bring in more media, you'd bring in more athletes. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand why they don't do it.
We'll tell Joe we have him in 2 weeks. I think he's back.
Yeah.
What he likes to do is he likes to build these like insanely ridiculous ideas. Like if you get 100 miles in Iceland, you'll get $100,000.
Yeah.
And it's not feasible. Like he always picks things. he always makes things that are impossible. And so people are like lemmings. They like don't look. They're just like, I'm going, and they just send it, and they always end up just getting trashed in the process.
Yeah.
I learned from a very young age because when I first started Spartan Race, I moved in with Joe at his ranch in Vermont.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Wow.
in 2013.
He's a maniac too.
He's insane.
What's that race he does? A death race?
Death race.
Yeah.
And I witnessed it happening while I lived there, and I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. He got these idiots to pay $1,000 a piece and then build him a staircase out of rocks bigger than this right here, 1,500 feet up a mountain. A staircase you could take every step, you'd never touch dirt. You just walk straight up these stones that people built. They paid to build him a staircase. And they're like,
Genius.
And somehow by the end of it, he's like, what you did was amazing. Like, he's like, you proved it to yourself that you had the strength to do that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like,
Meanwhile, Joe's like, I got my fucking
Yeah,
steps.
that's the ultimate ninja move right there.
fools. I was like, how the hell could you believe that? And they like wear the medal around for like 6 months afterwards. I was like, God. It's like, you just take that shit and you eat it all day. And it's amazing to me. But he's incredibly clever in the way that I think people don't have anything to identify with. And if you can identify with him, then you can identify with yourself and the community that surrounds it. It gives you ownership of at least something in your life. So
I think it also gives some people meaning in a world where things are so easy. They're so fucking easy that you never challenge yourself. Then you go do one of these races, you feel like you'll almost die, especially if you compare it to your normal 9-to-5 job, and you share that stress with the people around you, and then you bond, and you're like, yay, life has meaning now.
it's insanity to me.
Have you and Joe become good friends?
Yeah, Joe. I mean, Joe and I saw each other every day when I was living out there in Vermont. He's an incredible guy. At this point, he's kind of like Carmen Sandiego meets. There's got to be another better comparison, but Carmen Sandiego in the way that you can never find out where he really is. Like you're always like you got to get him for a second, and he like disappears on the helicopter. He's like, next time, Hunter. I'm like,
good old Apple IIe reference
like
there.
you motherfucker. But he's such a big vessel now that it's hard to keep up with his momentum. Yeah. He used to be just this simple person where you'd meet him in the general store, which is this like little grocery store in his town, sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. But now, like when I stand by him, like he has a microphone and a camera on him at all times. Like you started getting swept up in it. Like it's amazing. So I don't know how he does it. Like,
anything you learned from him while you were living with him, or anything you've picked up from him?
I would say the greatest thing I learned from Joe is just nonstop intensity. I learned that what I thought at the age of 23 was like a high level operator badass dude. Like he had woken up before me, done a workout, had a couple meetings, was having breakfast with me, and was able to like hang out with his family, do things, have breakfast with me, and then had the entire other day, like the full day lined up, and the next like 6 months lined up of meetings. And I think people like to use the word busy. Like whenever someone tells me they can't meet up with me or do something, I send back #busy to them. It's like an insult. I'm like, yeah, you're so busy, bro. I can't pick up my phone call. So busy. He defines busy. And if you want to have a full day, make it so. Don't talk about it, be about it. And he was just that kind of guy. Yeah. He had so many business deals going on all at once. He could be talking to you and 3 other people at the same time. It's pretty incredible.
That's awesome. What about like sleep or stress practices? You meditate? How's your sleep? Do you sleep well? Are you like a 5-hour night, let's go kind of person?
Gosh, I don't really believe in sleep as much as people talk about it. Like Malibu was on fire all last week, and I was up there fighting the fires, and we didn't sleep at all. And I had to go back and film a show that was being filmed every night from 4 p.m. till 4 a.m., and we were like going all out during that, and I would sleep for like 3-4 hours and then go to the gym for 2-3 hours and then go back and film the show and then fight fires. Like it was just like back and forth, and I'm still fine. And I'm standing here in front of you guys. So sleep's never been something important to me. I just close my eyes and I open them. I guess that's my formula.
How old are you right now?
29.
Oh.
My dad's the same way. My dad never sleeps. It's crazy. I enjoy it. I'm a king of cat naps. Like if you guys stop talking right now, I would just pass out for 5 seconds and come right back up. That's important. Like being able to find your little micro rests. I think the biggest thing that gives me energy is quiet time. Like I actually like being around people all the time, but I always make sure I go back up the mountain to my place in Malibu or like find a spot where I can read for a bit, take a quick power nap, and then get back out there. Like that's my superfood, I guess.
Is that kind of how you unwind? I would imagine a guy like you that's full throttle a lot of times also likes to probably shut down every once in a while. Is that what you do? Is you go away somewhere, read, or what do you normally do when you're not training to be a badass?
Every day between the hours of like 2 and 4. That's it. That's like my me time. Mm-hmm. Other than that, like I surround myself with people. Sometimes I do like the whole Paul Check thing where like I get naked and I'll like go out in the woods and stack rocks. Like every once in a while. I think it's important. I try to get away from my phone as much as possible. It's impossible with social media, my books, my emails, everything on that thing. So I just try to go places where there's no cell phone service and like make sure that I spend time like that by myself every once in a while. That's really powerful. But other than that, man, like it's just those 2 hours a day. It's pretty good.
What are you reading right now?
That Mike Mentzer book, just reading like the 100 or 50 strength training principles from Charles Poliquin, R.I.P. bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of strength training things. And I'm also reading The Ultimate High about this guy named Goran Kropp. He biked all the way from Sweden with all of his gear and then climbed up Mount Everest with no oxygen or anything and then came back down and then biked all the way home.
Christ.
Holy shit.
What?
Yeah. I think things like that, like when I can read things like that, it makes things that to me, like, where some people are like, I can't believe, like some people are telling me like, I can't believe you're getting on a flight and then coming right back here, bro. Like that's insane. One day. And I was like, I got in a car, I sat on a plane, and then I came back on a plane, then I got back in a car. I'm like, I didn't do anything. But what it does is it gives me, like, I like to read books like that. Like Shackleton Endurance is a great thing that everyone should probably read because it will just tell you to shut the fuck up and stop complaining. Like that story about him going into the pole, getting surrounded by ice, his ship gets wrecked. He keeps all of his men safe for like, I think 1.5 years or 2 years, and then gets them all out safe and saves them, all while not having any kind of resources of modern day man. And like that, I always like to read things like that. And I was just reading Napoleon's book, like his biography. So things where you realize that what you think is incredible is really, really on a small scale in comparison to most people, like some people. So like those things where I'm just strength training and like reading books like that.
And having a blast.
Now you've been outspoken for quite some time now, and you're not afraid to tell anybody how it is.
Yeah.
Have you rubbed anybody the wrong way, and do you have anybody that is kind of like your nemesis or an enemy or someone who doesn't like you very much?
God, you'd be surprised. Just recently, like in the past 2 weeks or a month, like 2 guys that I just kind of had beef with, like Robert Killian, he's a champion in our sport, and Isaiah Vidal, like they were both like high-level competitors against me, and we compete at such a high level. It's like sometimes hard to keep friendships. And I would just talk shit to them constantly. And it's like sometimes I just recognize, I was like, you know what? I either have to shake their hand or fight them. And I just decided to shake both their hands. I definitely rub people the wrong way. A lot of people, since I've been talking about this CrossFit stuff, just people I don't even know who are high-level CrossFitters just saying things like, It's more exhausting for them to log in and then hit me with negativity than it is for them to just shut the fuck up and do their own thing. So they'll just come at me. And I've always been the kind of person where I'll use the term butthurt. Like people just get super sensitive with these things that I say. And I don't take it back. I think the only thing that I am a strong believer in is if you have an opinion about someone, like you say it to their face. I really don't like it when people talk about other people behind their backs. Like
cowardly.
Unless you can, if you say something right now, I'm like, well, that guy's a total asshole. Like I'll never forget. Someone spilt beer on me at a bar one time, my buddy Joe, and he was such an asshole. And I was like, I'm tired of calling this guy an asshole. I got to go punch him in the face. So I just walked. He had just spilled beer on me and laughed at me. And then I walked over to my friends. I was like, he's such an asshole. And I was like, shit, I got to punch him in the face. So I just walked over and just punched him in the face as hard as I could, and then walked away. And I was like, that's how we got to do it from now on. And
that's the code right
You'd
there.
be surprised. Like if you can just get that stuff off your chest. I'm not trying to condone violence by any means, but I'm trying to say that you just got to stand up for yourself. And if you do follow through with those kind of words, it will make you own it or make you all of a sudden be like, oh gosh, I can't keep on saying this stuff. Like I got to change my mentality. And like, that's why when I kept on talking shit to those 2 guys I just mentioned, I was like, I don't really dislike them that much. Like I just liked a couple things that they did, and I went over and I squashed it with them, and I just said, hey, look, I'm super sorry I've been saying things about you and to you. I was like, you know what? Like I don't really dislike you that much. I just probably got upset.
Well, that's good. Very evolved.
Yeah. I'm trying to be evolved, you know, be a big man. I think it's hard this day and age with like the social media crisis of having like identity and also being like just an actual human being. Like you're creating these stories and you're not really identifying with that because you're just doing it in the moment and then writing a quick story and then going back to your regular life. Like, well, what the fuck am I going to post today that's going to sound like it's cool to these 40,000 people that follow me.
Absolutely.
And gosh, it's I'm not going to lie, like you're kind of a slave to it a little bit. Like I'm sure you guys, like you're going to probably do so many more interviews like this, and sometimes you're probably going to double back on things that you said and believed in just to kind of fill the void of the room. And I've been caught up in that before, and you don't want that. So it's kind of intense because I do these interviews all the time, and I have to always make sure I come into the room and don't say the same exact thing because nobody wants to hear it over and over again, but don't make something up just because you're trying to, be in the moment.
Have you repeated the stories you told us today? Have you told some of those before?
Yeah, I think sometimes, like, it was funny going through that whole model thing. Like, I try not to talk about it too much because, like, it was such a small part of my life, but everybody, when I bring it up, they're like, oh my God, tell me
hilarious.
about that. But,
it's just silly.
But, like, it was just such a small period of time, so I just told you guys some fun stories. But usually I don't talk about it because, like, so many people like will have like some kind of negative connotation of it. Like, did you have to do like a thing with that guy or something? I'm like, no, but thanks for bringing it up. Like, and they're like, you must have. You totally did. So like people. Like,
I don't remember.
I actually blacked out. So there's some times where I just don't bring things up because it's just sometimes it's not necessarily sensitive to me. It's just like I feel like if I bring it up, then it's going to open up just like a closet of shit that like you kind of just put behind you.
Right.
And it's not like I have anything to hide. It's just I try to stay relevant and have fun with it.
You've done so much and accomplished so much. What's your proudest moment?
Fuck. It wasn't the greatest thing, but it was probably my happiest moment. We won the team world title at World's Toughest Mudder, which is a 24-hour race and a 5-mile lap in Las Vegas. And we had no clue what we were doing. Like, we showed up just like, I don't know. It just was we were so unprepared. Like, we had done Spartan races and stuff. It was my first Tough Mudder ever, and it was 24 hours. We'd done Spartan races that were 8 miles. All you have to do is have shorts, shoes, and maybe a t-shirt and a water bottle. So we brought the same equipment to this 24-hour race, and we got annihilated. But we ended up winning just through pure grit, and we were all such good friends, 4 of us going through. My best buddy shit his pants, and he wanted to take his wetsuit off. He's like, I got to poop. I was like, you can't poop. I was like, you got to poop your pants because we have to keep on running to win this race. Like, it was moments like that where, and I had to pick him up on my shoulders, and I know that he was filled with shit afterwards. It was like we were just doing things, and one of my buddies was scared of heights, and we had to jump off this 40-foot cliff to keep on getting to the next section, or you do this huge penalty lap, and he'd be crying, and I was like, shut the fuck up. I was like, this 40-foot cliff is our world title right here. And we overcame so many of our little battles inside. Like, I got hypothermia. Like, I was having a fucking beef with my girlfriend. Other person pooped his pants. Other person had to get over heights. Like, we had all these little micro battles, but we went forward as a team, and I never compete as a team. And it was my first success ever as a team, and I was like, God, that was way more gratifying than winning on your own. And I think about it to this day. It's like I understand the team approach now and why it's valuable to have a good team.
That's awesome.
That is cool. What about the least thing you're proud of?
Least thing I'm proud of. I'm trying to think of something that I just blew. I don't know. I would probably say the thing that I'm least proud of is some of the ways that I treated my family and my friends probably in my earlier years, through the whole drug, drinking, rehab, arrests, things like that. It wasn't like I was lying in the way that, I was stealing from you, or I was lying in the way that I needed to just mislead you so that you could, fall for my tricks. It was like I just was not necessarily a genuine person in my day-to-day actions. It was just more me-centric. And it took so many years to get past that and be a little bit more evolved in the way that I can see other people in the room rather than myself. So I felt bad. The most painful moment of my entire life was when I was in rehab. We had these, I don't remember the word for it, but basically it's kind of like a letter that your parents write to you, each of them independently, write a letter to you where they tell you how it is. And we're sitting around the fire in the middle of nowhere in the woods, like straight up woods, not like, a little bit, like a couple feet off a beaten, like an actual path. Like we were in the thick of it in the woods, in the snow, around this fire. And I'm not giving a fuck about what the rehab people are telling me. And they give you this letter and they're like, it's time for you to read. And I read my mom's like it was just like a newspaper article or just like some kind of fiction novel. I was like, whatever, stupid. And then I read my dad's, and I at the time hated my dad. Like he and I would have like death threat conversations. I was like, I'll burn down your house. Well, you're sleeping in it. And I read that thing and it tore me up. Like that kind of guttural cry that you can imagine. It's like, when you, like a mother's lost a child kind of thing. Like I was so like, like gargling in my own tears. And by the time I was done reading that, I was like, you are a beast of a human. Like you have ruined people's lives and you don't even know it. And it took me like another couple years past that to actually start to act upon those things. But I'll never forget that letter.
What did he say in it that hit you?
Oh, dude, it was like, here are all the things that you ask for, and here are all the things and you demand of us, and here are all the things that you do in return that might even like slightly, like what makes you think that you deserve any of these things? Just because like you popped out doesn't mean that you deserve anything that you ask for. And like I was just an entitled little shit. Like we were a well-to-do family growing up in like, White Town, USA, where like we had no problems, no, like, there was no issues with our life. And I just was like, this kid gets this car, this thing, like I want that. I want, I want to go here. I want to go like on this. This is what I want to do with my time. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And at the time, like for some reason, I don't know why it seemed so apparent, but like I was just getting fucked up. And when I would get arrested, I'd be like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. Like, you have to trust me. I didn't do that. And I was just lying to their face. And he's like, how could you think that you didn't do that? You're on camera doing it.
Right.
Like, and it was crazy. So
It was very entitled.
yeah, I was very entitled. Like, I think it just, I never had to deal with the ramifications other than being like spanked and put in time out. Like, most people when they screw up, they like truly, they got to deal with the deed. And I hadn't ever faced that. And at the time I was in like a rehab that cost $20,000 a month to have me at, which was basically a glorified camp. And like, I still was at like basically like at the peak of existence. Like, who gets to pay that kind of money to be in trouble, to be in the woods? Like, I still was in that moment and I couldn't see it. And like, they just kept on giving me more rope to hang myself with. And I'm not saying what they did was wrong by any means, but I probably should have tasted pain, like, a little pain and suffering a little bit earlier on.
Was there an intervention or did you willingly go to rehab?
No, I was court ordered. Yeah. The judge said, mister.
That's right.
This is out of line.
That's right. Okay.
Dude, I'll never forget. I would go into the courtrooms, and I'm in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is a pretty badass town in Connecticut, meaning like there's a lot of bad shit going on there. And these people are being like, basically brought up on the in front of the judge for like grand larceny and, assault with a deadly weapon or murder, or just fucked up things. And these people would just be processed and sent throughout. And when I got up, the family that I had just most recently got in trouble with, the woman would get on the microphone and she would just be like, this boy has tormented our family for years. Like, I can't sleep at night. The devil is in my brain. And like it was messed up. And the whole room would look at me. I'm like, oh gosh. Like, but at the time I didn't even care. So it took years. I went through that whole thing, and then I went through college and partied a lot. I had like an overdose moment that kind of kicked me back into realizing that drugs and this whole professional racing career was ever going to be, I couldn't do both at the same time. So just like looking back at that stuff now and seeing the way I was, like, I just try to make sure that I design myself to be as far away from that as possible, and also make sure that I can always recognize who I was and how I can be better than that. And I always, like, the reason why I say I go to a therapist a lot is because I want to make sure that I always keep that person in check. Because as you become a tidal wave of a human being, like, you don't understand the amount of momentum and energy you have behind you. Like, what you say right now, people will listen to and then follow in your footsteps, or like, the people that you don't pay attention to, you're just kind of trampling over. And that can happen with my family, my friends, my competitors, people who, like, the businesses that I'm involved with. So I always got to keep that in check.
Did you have a moment where you felt compelled to come back and say something or write something to your parents? Like, have you had that conversation like since all this?
I think in the years it's kind of happened organically in the way that I didn't like have to like sit them down and say it. I think it's I have had conversations with them, but I think just overall I try my best to just be the best son I can be at this point. Yeah. And I had to write letters back, and I had to have like, you know, they had to come out into the woods and have like a moment with me and my counselors and stuff. So probably as a grown man now, I probably could do something. But what I do now is I always make sure that every single time there's holidays or anytime there's a moment, like I'm there for my family and I give every effort that I have to be the best person possible. I'm not a huge believer in like grand gestures, just because I think sometimes when people do grand gestures, they think that they can then all of a sudden ride off that for a long time. So I just try to be consistent and be a good guy. So that's what I'm trying to do now.
Do you think they're proud of you now?
Oh yeah, it's pretty incredible. I can say that my dad and my dad's my biggest fan probably because he really he'll fly out for almost any race. That's a big cool deal. Nice. He's there. Everybody in my family's on these email chains and they're really involved. My mom makes sure that, like, you know, she's just constantly calling me up, staying in check. Like, you know, my friend, you know, Lucy said that she saw this. Like, they're super excited. And my grandfather, somebody I haven't mentioned at all, he probably was the person who kicked this whole thing off. That's my mom's father. He was a Masters Olympian and a world champion in track and field. And that dude was like the most humble and amazing person you've ever met. Like, he's still alive, so I can't say, you could still meet him if you want to. But he kind of was the reason why I started getting into athletics. He pushed me so much to be part of it. And I think the more I am involved with sport, the more they can see that I'm kind of carrying the torch forward in our family like that. So everyone's really invested.
That's very cool.
That's awesome.
We're excited about it.
Well, you're a cool guy, man.
I'm trying to be.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming on the show.
We're gonna fight for you to get that wild card, dude.
Yeah, baby.
I think it would be
push it forward.
I think it would be smart. I think it would be smart on their end to put you on because you would bring media. You know what I mean? They need a Conor
Mind
McGregor.
pump media. There we go.
Now, have you given yourself a time frame? We talked a little bit off air, and I was sharing with you, like, before I even competed in bodybuilding, I wanted to build my frame, build my physique, so I knew I could potentially win. You said that you alluded to the same thing, that you're kind of going through that right now with a lot of the Olympic lifts and training for CrossFit. Do you have a time frame in mind? Like, I'd like to be ready by the games of next year or the year after. 2020
is 100% the year. Like, it's either make it or drop it. Like, I'm going to do that. And basically, at this point, it's either the wild card this year. I will do a couple submissions of doing some of these contests that they have, but at the same time, like, I'm not going to lie to myself, and I'm not going to go and bark in someone's face and say that I can beat them unless I know I can. So I'll be totally honest, I'm not ready. So I like to be ready, and I like to be intentional with my design. So it's going to be a quiet year for me in competition. I'll still do some things, but I'm just going to go in dojo mode. Like, I'm behind enemy lines, and I'm doing my research.
I'm excited, man.
Yeah.
Good deal, man. Well, good luck.
For sure, dude.
Yeah,
You guys will be seeing it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good
Thanks for
time,
coming on, man.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Rock on, baby.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.